The arena buzzed with anticipation as the final preliminary bout approached, a moment many fans had unknowingly been waiting for. The night a young Mexican prodigy would be tested against a hardened Puerto Rican veteran. Saul Canelo Álvarez, only 19 years old, entered the arena for his very first appearance in the United States. An unfamiliar land, but one that would soon learn his name. On the opposite side stood José Miguel Cotto, older, experienced, and carrying the proud fighting legacy of Puerto Rico. This wasn't simply a match between two men. It was Mexico versus Puerto Rico, youth versus veteran grit, rising promise against established toughness. As the fighters were introduced, the contrast was almost cinematic. Cotto appeared calm, confident, and determined to humble the youngster placed before him. Canelo, with his trademark red hair and stoic expression, looked focused beyond his impressive. But critics wondered if fast matchmaking and carefully selected opponents had made him vulnerable to a real test. The bell rang, and immediately the tone was set. Cotto surged forward, determined to overwhelm the inexperienced star before he could settle in. Within moments, he launched a left hook that smashed flush onto Canelo's jaw, stunning him. The crowd gasped. Canelo stumbled, his legs momentarily betraying him as Cotto pounced with veteran intensity. For the first time in the fight, and perhaps the first time in his career, Canelo Álvarez looked genuinely hurt. Yet even as the storm crashed over him, there was a glimpse of resilience. Instead of folding, he tried to answer back, throwing counters, keeping composure, surviving the early danger. The first round ended not with dominance, but with a question. As the second round began, a shift rippled through the ring. Canelo, who had tasted danger early, now approached with sharpened focus and a sense of urgency masked behind calm determination. Cotto, encouraged by the damage he caused in round one, pressed forward once again, eager to test the teenager's ability to adapt. But this time, Álvarez wasn't the same fighter who had been wobbled by a left hook minutes earlier. He tightened his guard, steadied his feet, and began reading every movement of his opponent. Cotto lunged aggressively, but his pressure now gave Canelo opportunities, gaps to slip into, windows to fire from. Álvarez responded with crisp counterpunches, short right hands, clean uppercuts, and sharp hooks that sliced through Cotto's rhythm. Each punch carried the message that the young fighter was not merely surviving. He was learning, adjusting, and growing in real time. What stood out most was the poise he displayed. Despite being only 19, Canelo handled pressure like a seasoned veteran, refusing to be dragged into wild exchanges or emotional mistakes. With each passing moment, he gained more confidence. The crowd sensed the momentum shifting. By the middle of the round, Canelo was controlling distance, forcing Cotto to reset his feet again and again. The veteran still pushed the action, but Álvarez kept landing cleaner shots, picking his opponent apart with methodical precision. At the bell, the atmosphere had changed dramatically. The same fans who feared for Canelo earlier now watched as the young star began taking command. The fire that had threatened to consume him had instead forged something new. Resolve, discipline. The third round opened with a sense of anticipation. Something was building, an energy in the arena that felt like pressure before a storm. Cotto, knowing he still had the experience advantage, continued marching forward, determined not to let the momentum slip away from him. He threw combinations, forcing exchanges and trying to remind Canelo that this was no easy ascent. But the teenager had fully settled in. Álvarez moved with confidence, slipping punches with subtle head movement and firing back with sharper accuracy each time Cotto overextended. Then, midway through the round, the moment arrived. Cotto lunged in again, his weight shifting forward, leaving just enough space for a perfectly timed counter. Canelo reacted instantly, reading the attack like a textbook. Boom! A tight, explosive right hand landed flush on Cotto's chin. Cotto dropped to a knee, his glove touching the canvas. The referee stepped in and issued the count. The crowd erupted. This was not luck. It was discipline, timing, and maturity beyond Canelo's years. As Cotto rose, his expression revealed something subtle but undeniable: respect for the young fighter who had just exposed a crack in his armor. The knockdown didn't end the fight, but it altered everything. Cotto was now hesitant, in moments where he had previously been fearless. Canelo, meanwhile, smelled opportunity. He stayed composed, not reckless, but confident enough to press forward with balance and control. From that point on, Álvarez dictated the rhythm, landing combinations with increasing speed and force. Every exchange showcased the gap in timing and precision growing between them. As the middle rounds unfolded, the ring became a laboratory where Canelo displayed the full spectrum of his emerging talent. Each round painted a clearer picture of dominance: accurate counters, uppercuts slicing between Cotto's gloves, and body shots that gradually drained the veteran's stamina. Cotto, to his credit, remained relentless. He continued pressing forward, trusting his toughness and experience to turn the tide. But Álvarez was no longer the vulnerable teenager from round one. His timing had sharpened into a weapon. His defense tightened, his counters grew heavier, and his body language shifted from cautious to commanding. Cotto's punches, once forceful, now met elbows, gloves, and air. Frequently off balance, he lunged into traps he couldn't see until it was too late. Canelo's precision was the difference. Hooks punished his ribs. Right hands kept finding gaps in his guard. And through it all, Canelo remained unnervingly poised, breathing calmly, reading attacks before they materialized. Commentators marveled at the maturity displayed by a fighter still in his teens. It wasn't just skill, it was ring IQ, discipline, and a composure rarely seen in fighters so young. By round 6, the gap between them had widened into something undeniable. Cotto still had heart, but Álvarez had youth, power, and momentum. Each exchange became more one-sided. The Puerto Rican warrior tried everything: pressure, angles, combinations. But the storm of the early rounds had passed. Now, Canelo was the one dictating tempo, range, and damage. The fight had evolved from a test into a demonstration of how quickly greatness can emerge when challenged. And all signs pointed toward an ending that was no longer by the time the later rounds arrived. The fight had become a showcase of Canelo Álvarez's transformation under pressure. The early scare that nearly derailed him had instead ignited something fierce within him. Round by round, he had chipped away at Cotto's resistance, and now the veteran's movements slowed, his guard lifted higher, and his punches lost the snap they had earlier. But Cotto's heart refused to let him quit. He walked into punches with determination, trying to mount any form of offense, but Canelo's accuracy made every attempt costly. The young star's right hands were landing with thudding precision. His left hook found its mark again and again, and uppercuts seemed to pass cleanly through Cotto's guard, as if magnetically guided. Álvarez wasn't reckless. He was calculating. He sensed fatigue, sensed hesitation, and began increasing output with methodical pressure. In round 9, the breaking point arrived. Cotto backed toward the ropes, his face absorbing shot after shot. He tried returning fire, but his punches floated without force. Canelo unleashed combinations, each punch cleaner than the last, each one drawing louder reactions from the crowd. The referee, Tony Weeks, watched closely. Cotto wasn't defending effectively, wasn't firing back with authority. His legs wobbled, his guard sagged, and Canelo continued delivering heavy, unanswered blows. Weeks stepped in, assessing the situation moment by moment. Then, after another sharp right hand snapped Cotto's head backward, The referee made the decision. He waved his arms, stepping between the fighters. TKO victory for Canelo Álvarez at 251 of round 9. The arena erupted. A star had arrived. On this night, in his first fight on American soil, Canelo